Hello and welcome to episode 40 of The Thing About Golf, a podcast series from Golf Australia magazine that explores the fundamental question of why people are so drawn to this, the greatest of all stick and ball games. My name's Rod Murray, and alongside John Huggan, we take turns at putting this apparently simple, though somehow vexing question to a range of people in the golf space, from players and administrators to writers and entrepreneurs, and every type of golfer in between. On episode 40, we're delving into the world of administration. And while my special guest is far from a household name in the game, he may be the architect of one of its most important advancements. David Greenhill's official title is State Services Manager for Golf Australia. But let's be honest, titles tell you almost nothing about people. In a 30-year career, David has had many different titles. But the truth is, he could have been given just one at the very beginning, and it would have held true for the last 3 decades, because what David really is a passionate advocate for golf. It was back in 2011, while walking his dog, that David had an idea that has helped to change the golf landscape globally. The epiphany was to combine the men's and women's Vic Opens, and that tournament, 9 years later, has morphed into a European and LPGA Tour event, lauded by all who have attended. But it's also the blueprint for tournaments across the globe and at all levels of the game. As you'll hear in this interview, David is thoughtful, articulate and humble, but you will also clearly hear his passion. A lifetime spent in the service of the game has done nothing to diminish his love for it, and golf is better for his presence. Now, just before we hear from David, a couple of quick reminders. If you haven't already, go and listen to John Huggan's excellent interview with the R&A CEO Martin Slumbers from the last episode. Also, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. If you don't know how to do that, get in touch with me directly and I'll personally help you. My email, rod@talkinggolf.com. That's just the one G in talkinggolf, rod@talkinggolf.com. Follow us on Twitter at @thinggolf, capital THING, capital GOLF, or me at @rod_Murray, that's M for Mary, ORRI. And you can also follow Huggy at John Huggan. Now, enough of all that. Let's get to our chat with David Greenhill. David Greenhill, first thing we have to do, as always, on The Thing About Golf, it's quite the commitment, so thank you for taking some time to chat to us.
Oh, you're welcome, Rod. I'm happy to be here.
I suppose the clue's in the title, The Thing About Golf. Before I ask you that question, which is normally my jumping off point, I don't know anywhere near enough about you. People in Melbourne golf would know plenty about you. You're a bit of a known entity in Melbourne golf, so this is going to be a great journey of exploration today. But what I want to ask you about first, the one thing I do know about you, which I reckon you're going to try and deflect.
Right.
The Vic Open.
Oh, the Vic Open, yes.
Is that your idea?
Yes.
Combined Vic Open?
The combined Vic Open was my idea, but success has many parents, and the idea was embraced by a number of different people. So whilst I thought of the idea, and it goes all the way back to the embryonic idea, which we'll talk about, there's a lot of people that have helped along the way in different ways to grow the event to where it is now. So I won't pretend to say that it's all solely down to me, because it absolutely isn't. And we can talk about some of the people that contributed along that journey. But the idea really came out of necessity and needing to do something different. In 2010, November 2010, men's and women's amateur golf in Victoria came together. So the old Victorian Golf Association, which was the men's body, and Women's Golf Victoria, which was the women's body, amalgamated after 100-odd years of operating independently.
That would have gone just smoothly with no problems at all, I'm sure, David.
No, look, I think there's a lot of goodwill on both sides. It was just really
it has to be, doesn't it?
It has to be, and for the betterment of golf in Victoria, that had to happen, and it did, which was great. And coincidentally, in November 2010, VGA WGV amalgamated, and in January 2011 we ran what turned out to be the last standalone men's Vic Open at Spring Valley, and the event went well, but it had been hanging in there. It was about $120,000 prize money event. It got a little bit of interest and served a purpose, but compared to the halcyon days of the Vic Open that I grew up watching back in the 70s and 80s. It certainly wasn't the event that it once was. And at the end of that event in 2011, we were struggling from a corporate support point of view. We were struggling from a government point of view. And in some discussions we had with the Victorian state government, they really challenged us to go away and think of something new and different.
You've been selling us the same product for a very long time.
Yeah.
We'd like it to be something
Yeah, we
else.
want to be... And I was also sort of thinking at the time, well, we also need to show the golf world, the Victorian golf world, that men and women's golf had come together. And that,
genuinely, not just...
No, not just in name and face value. And I did remember that back in the early 90s when I started working in golf, there was a Victorian Women's Open. So I thought about the Victorian Women's Open, and it'd be great to bring that back. This all happened walking my dog around Gills Park Lake, actually, late one night, just sort of thinking about golf and what are we going to do with the Vic Open, et cetera, et cetera. So I was thinking about the Vic Women's Open. I was thinking about the men's Vic Open. I'm thinking, well, why don't we just play them together? Like, we play golf together at club level. Like, I've played with my mum quite a few times in competitions, obviously, and lots of other women over the years in club comps. So it happens at club level. Why can't we do it at a major level? So I got back from the dog walk that night, sat down on the kitchen table and wrote up a mythical plan as to what this event would look like, how to be structured, how many people would play in it, how we'd do the cuts, how we'd maintain the integrity of both titles. So we were basically keeping the men's Vic Open going, and we were resurrecting the Victorian Women's Open, which I think was last played about 1992. So I went back to the office the next day, and at that point, myself and a lovely lady called Bronwyn Young, hello Bronwyn if you're listening, we were both sort of interim caretaker CEOs of this entity until they advertised and appointed a new CEO. So I bounced this idea off Bronwyn, and she thought it was a great idea, so we took it to the Interim Golf Victoria board, and to their credit, they thought it was a great idea, and they gave us the green light to go and sound out government, sound out our existing sponsors, sound out the existing host club Spring Valley about the idea. And we needed an extra venue just with the format, because we were in Melbourne at that point, and everyone thought it was a great idea and were really encouraging. So state government loved it, and they basically said, look, if you can get this to work, we'll keep our commitment going to the event. Spring Valley were great. I went and saw a general manager, good mate of mine called John Stamp, who was managing Woodlands Golf Club at the time, because we needed just to get it off the ground. In our first year, what we were looking at doing is keeping the men's event going as a 72-hole event, and most women's professional events in Australia back then, it's over 10 years ago now, so it's sort of good time flies, were 54 holes. So the plan was to play the first women's round at Woodlands on the Friday, play the second women's round at Spring Valley, do a cut on the Saturday night. The men's event would just play their first two rounds at Spring Valley, and they do their cut on the Friday night. So we could massage the numbers and get it all to fit. And away we went. So the PGA and ALPG were terrifically supportive. They realised too that we needed to do different things in Australia to keep professional events going and vibrant. And it's funny. Like, I remember thinking in the lead up to the event, I had a great phone call from Tony Charlton too in the week leading up to that first joint Vic Open, ringing to wish me all the best, because to be fair, Tony was also a catalyst behind this idea, because I remember in the 70s my mum, who was a pretty good golfer, Tasmanian women's state player, coming over to Victoria and playing in a women's amateur invitational field within the men's Vic Open.
Okay.
So it's not. This isn't a new idea.
It was not heard of. No, that's right.
No,
there's been exhibitions over the years. Obviously, Babe Zahari has played in the New South Wales Open.
Jan Stevenson and Jane Locke played exhibition matches in Vic Opens in the early 1980s.
The difference being, of course, David, those things were an exhibition to create headlines and attract interest. This is a more legitimate,
this is a proper event,
proper golf event. Two conjunctive golf events.
Yeah,
proper.
Yeah, definitely. But to have someone like Tony Charlton ring you up in the week, leading up to it, wishing you all the best and don't ever be afraid to try new ideas and that sort of thing, that was really encouraging.
It is fabulous, seriously, because even in golf, I think we sometimes get taken with the idea that golf is full of stodgy old people who aren't willing to change. It's not 100% true.
No,
they do exist.
Yeah, they do.
But I'm not sure they're majority, and they're not always the people who are running the game, I don't think.
No, that's true. So that was good. So then the tournament week rolls around, and I sort of knew this idea. There's lots of enduring memories from the Vic Open, but I sort of knew this idea would work on the Monday morning when I turned up at Spring Valley to do player registrations and things. And there were 2 guys and 2 girls practice putting on the putting green at Spring Valley. And I was just thinking, this is good. So the players are out nice and early to get a bit of practice in. And then all 4 of them walked over together to the first tee and played a practice round together. And I thought, well, there you go. So there's no hesitation from the players going out playing practice rounds together, because they'd be all grown up playing junior golf together. So that sort of gave me an inkling that this thing would work. And then the event, the week went along, and it went pretty well. You know, we got lucky with the weather. We got all our numerical calculations figured out, but the event in its full power probably wasn't really seen until the Sunday, because even on the Saturday we had the men's field played in the morning and the women's field played in the afternoon. But on the Sunday it was both cuts had been made, alternating groups, which is I think Joe Clatton from memory won the women's championship, and Scott Arnold, who was a good mate of Ricky Ponting, so Ricky was a test captain at the time. So everything sort of aligned for us, and we had massive crowds. Like, I just remember the volume of people. So this was in 2012 when it first came to light. And it took, from the moment we walked the dog around Jells Park Lake, probably January 2011, it took pretty much a full year of planning and talking to people. And
there's a lot of people to talk to. There's twice as many people to talk to as if you're organising the Vic Open.
There was, and it was new. And we wanted to make sure that, financially the model hung together. But the event didn't just come about because of me. It came about firstly because of Bronwyn was really supportive of it. The GV board was really supportive of it. All of those entities that we've just mentioned were supportive of it, and we just had a commitment to make it work, and it was fantastic. But from there, by the time the event was played, Simon Brookhouse had been appointed as CEO to Golf Vic. And Simon was a real innovator and ideas person. So he could see the strength in what we were doing, and he's been pretty instrumental in growing it further. So shortly after that first one in 2012, the state government loved it. Then we had an approach from 13th Beach to take it down there to a 36-hole facility, which probably lent itself even better to growing the idea. The state government loved the idea of just going regional too, just getting it out of Melbourne. So it's obviously been based at 13th Beach from 2013 onwards, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And that's on the back of hard work that Simon did. That's on the back of some hard work a marketing manager at GV at the time, now Golf Australia, Greg Oakford, did. It was a real collective team effort, and every year it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. And probably the other enduring memory, because I don't have too much to do with it these days, the other enduring memory, though, I've got of it, probably 2, was probably the first year we were down at 13th Beach, where the whole idea was together for the whole week, which was better. But I remember seeing a family, mum and a dad and a boy and a girl wandering around the golf on the Sunday, and I'm thinking, how good's this that the little girl in the family is noticing women playing golf, alternating groups with the guys. She's going to think that that's normal, it is normal.
It should be normal.
It should be normal.
We'd like it to be normal.
We want it to be normal.
Let's make it normal.
And that to me was that just rubber stamp. Okay, this is a great idea. And seeing the intangibles, I think that the event has created, there's men's and women's club championships now primarily, but just about most of the clubs I know are all played concurrently, finals on the same day, on a Sunday or whatever it is. We're in Melbourne today, there's pennant being played all over Melbourne, men's and women's pennant being played on Sundays. So, I played pennant, well, not very well, but Colts pennant when I was younger. And, I didn't have to take days off work or days off school or university or whatever to do it. And I'm pleased that now happens. And there's so many other great events. I remember at the very first Vic Open at Spring Valley, the men's and women's captain presidents from Riversdale were wandering around watching. And they use what they saw as the catalyst to bring together, two of Australia's oldest amateur golf tournaments in Melbourne, the men's and women's Riversdale Cups, which are now played simultaneously over the Moonbelong weekend in Melbourne. So the Vic Open's had a lot of positive influences in golf, and especially bringing men's and women's golf together. So that's the thing I think I'm probably proud of most, for that little idea. The tournament's, obviously, it's last time it was played because we had a year off this year because of the COVID situation. But it's a men's European Tour event and it's a LPGA event. Who would have thought?
Well, in all honesty, who would have thought? It strikes me, David, a couple of things. There's a lot to unpack there. A simple little idea while walking the dog, and it is very simple, isn't it? Even in hindsight, it's a very simple thing.
Yeah.
It's a much more complex thing to achieve. As you said, there's got to be a lot of people on board and invest in it legitimately, not box ticking. We see a lot of box ticking, I think, in the modern era with the Me Too movement and those sorts of things, and people want to get on board and do box ticking. You need something legitimate, don't you? And clearly you got that, and that's encouraging.
Yeah, the players were really great too. Mm-hmm. And after the first year, because we're really just putting our toe in the water.
There was no guarantee, was there, that it would ever be done again? It could have flopped and disappeared.
Could have just been a one-off and that was it. But the girls were great. And they said, look, if it helps you, we don't object to a 72-hole tournament. We'd love to play more 72-hole tournaments. We go, great, okay, well, we want this to be equal, so let's make it equal. And then moving to 13th Beach, where you had the two golf courses, gave us the capacity to increase field size and be more equal, which is what it now is. So the way it works these days is that there's the beach course and the creek course, and rounds 1 and 2 you play one on one and one on the other. You play one morning, one afternoon, and then you cut, and then we play the rest of the weekend on the beach course. Prize money's equal, which is really important. Like I'm the dad of 2 daughters, very proud dad of 2 daughters, and equal opportunity and equal pay, equal rights, equal everything is certainly the mantra in our house. So that was a non-negotiable too along the way. But the support we had for it, all the different people that made a contribution towards it. To me, it's probably outside of the real international major events. I don't know why this format's not done more often.
It's starting to happen, though, isn't it, David? The European Tour is going to run an event with Annika and Henrik. There's been some variations on the theme as well. I'll get your thoughts on some of that shortly. But just to go back quick, firstly, what were some of the logistical challenges? Because immediately once you've had this idea to do a tournament that's different, well, now you're in uncharted territory.
Look, at the end of the day, I've always looked at golf tournaments, whether it be running a junior comp as part of my job. Like I started working in golf in 1991 and ran everything from junior summer comps for boys and girls up to Vic Opens. The first Vic Open I ever was associated with was the one that Robert Allenby won later that year as an amateur, which was fantastic. So I always knew that as long as we had a golf course and golfers, we could make it work. It was just juggling the numbers. I remember doing a lot of work with Warren Seville at the ALPG at the time, just to see, well, how many women are we going to have play, and what's a reasonable size, just to see if this works.
Because there's a problem right there with Australian women's professional golf, isn't there? They don't actually have enough members week to week to stage a tournament field necessarily. They need their international players to come home and players from other tours. Yeah, and
in 2012, everyone was sort of a bit dubious, and the women's tournament scene wasn't anywhere near as good as wasn't as good back then as it is now.
No.
And that wasn't for the want of the people trying.
No, of course not.
But we just worked in collaboration. Whatever logistical issue, once we got the numbers crunched as to how we'd make this embryonic thing work in year one, the PGA were great. I remember working with Andrew Langford-Jones and Graham Scott and Simon Budley at the time, and put together the template, and it really helped. The players all knew each other, even the men and women, so that helped. And it just flowed beautifully. And we didn't, we can, right from the word go, we've never had the tournament rope so you could walk along with the players, so we've kept that theme, which is an old Vic Open theme, going back into the 70s and 80s. We've kept that along the way. So, the logistics side of it didn't really bother me a great deal because it was sort of something that I'd always had to juggle with just about every event I'd ever run.
You've got the necessities. You've got the field.
You've got
a golf course. The rest of it you can figure out.
Yeah, we never had grandstands as such. We never had a lot of marquees. We had a lot of signage, which we were always. But in a lot of ways, we found cost savings in running the event like this, because all the way along we're thinking, well, it's great that we're not doing two separate events, because we don't need two lots of signage. We only need one lot of signage. Probably the only thing, and 13th Beach was a good venue for this reason, is you just need space. With double the number of players, that's double the number of people you need on the driving range. So there's a bit of coordinating.
Caddies, coaches,
all
club reps there. Everything goes two times.
So, and now the event is basically 156 equal fields these days. That's a lot of players.
Absolutely.
So now the logistics of it now are far more complex than what it was in its very humble.
You got out at the right time, though.
Yeah, well, I haven't been directly associated with the running of it now for a couple of years, but logistically it's much more complicated now,
including the fact that you're now working with two international tours.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot of extra requirements and obligations. There's player lounges and courtesy cars and all
sorts of demands from players and from tour reps outside of Australia who want certain things to happen, which I'm sure we'll talk about something. Just so that the listeners know, if you hear the odd clanking of a spoon, we're on a chilly morning here in Melbourne at Commonwealth Golf Club, and we've got a couple of coffees here having.
Yeah, but it's typical. And in fact, probably one of the other good memories of the Vic Open, especially all the years at 13th Beach, was that we've been blessed with weather.
I've been to a few and they've always
just blue sky Sundays is just fantastic.
We've had some wind down there at various times, but we've never had the sideways rain.
Yeah. As far as I can remember, we only ever had one play suspension, and that was on a Saturday as a brief storm went across. But we've been very lucky, and that's you do need a bit of luck,
of course,
when you're running those big events.
Golf always relies on a bit of luck. To win a golf tournament, you need a bit of luck. To win a Wednesday comp, you need a bit of luck. There's always a bit of luck.
Absolutely.
Required. I often say, David, it's my favourite tournament to go to each year, the Vic Open, the times that I've been. It's not the most important tournament in Australia, but it's the best tournament. I'd imagine that's something that would make you quite proud to hear that. Yeah.
I grew up sort of watching Vic Open. So my link with it was Mum firstly going off to play, so it was basically, I think the Tasmanian girls, they threw a coin up in the air. It was whoever was going to accompany Lindy Goggin over to play as part of the Tasmanian two-player team.
Yes. And soon her granddaughter, who's on that same track.
She's a great player. Actually, it's funny, one of my early memories of golf, like I got into golf because of my family. Dad's a retired club pro and Mum's obviously been a pretty good player. My brother's a course superintendent. So all four of us do it. But I remember back in the 70s, I probably would have been about 10 or 11 or something, school holidays, and Mum says, you're coming with me today, you're going to caddy for me. I'm playing women's pennant at Royal Hobart. Oh, okay. Who are you playing? Oh, you'll see. So we turn up at Royal Hobart. Mum was playing for Claremont, I think it was, where Dad was the pro, and lo and behold, Lindy Goggin's playing number one for Royal Hobart. So I think she beat Mum pretty easy, but she had about 7 or 8 birdies. I'm just thinking, how good is this? How good is this player? This is the best. This is just one of the best players I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and that sort of, when you're a kid, sort of trying to get inspiration, and you see a player like that up close.
Powerful, isn't it? It's quite a powerful.
Yeah, and she's just so good. Yeah. Just unbelievably good. So I always remember that. So the first Vic Open contact was that Mum and take Mum to the airport and going to Melbourne to playing the Vic Open, and then we moved over here in '79 when Dad became club pro at Peninsula. Then being able to go to the Vic Opens, the really I call them the halcyon days, the Tony Charlton extravaganzas at Metropolitan with the bleach blonde Greg Norman playing and barrage balloons flying across the.
He pulled some stunts, didn't he?
Yeah,
Tony?
It was just
marching bands and bagpipes. Was there a plane buzzed the course one year?
Yeah, and it was. I remember the year Clayton won it. I think Mike Clayton won it in about '82. Lee Trevino played, and just seeing Lee.
See Lee Trevino. There you go.
Like the only time I'd ever seen Lee Trevino before that was on Pro Celebrity Golf or at British Opens or whatever, and to see Lee Trevino up close was just amazing. Yeah. Launched
a career. John Huggan, who has been on the show on Thing About Golf some time ago, his dad took him. Might have been a Ryder Cup. They went down to the practice range, and Lee Trevino was just putting on a Lee Trevino show,
Sure.
talking to the few people that were there watching us.
Yeah.
And just to watch him hit these amazing shots with the one club, he'd hit one 3 feet off the ground and stop it 100 yards out, and then he'd hit it a mile in there. And John Huggan became hooked for life. Yep. And look at him now. He's one of our premier golf riders in the world.
Back in those days, at those Vic Opens especially, you could go to the range. And I still like doing this more so than actually going and watch them play holes. They go to the range and they'll talk to you. Like, they'll tell you what they're doing. Like, I remember David Graham once, because my father became club pro at Huntingdale in about 1985, where the Australian Masters, and the great years of the Australian Masters too, from the sort of mid to late 80s onwards. And I remember David Graham on the range was just talking to a whole lot of young pros about, well, you know, you need these high-flighted 3-irons at Augusta, and he was just showing how you hit big high fades with 3-irons. And this is like the old Bellata balls and, you know, McGregor blades and stuff like that. So, you know, just unbelievable. So it did a couple of things. It just reminded you, how good are these blokes? And I'm never going to be any good.
I can't do that.
I can't do that. I better keep studying a bit harder, I think, because I ain't going to be making any money out of it.
The administration for me, perhaps.
Just a sort of a battling 5 marker. Well, yeah, you're never going to get to that level. But yeah, that all of those memories of those Vic Opens is carried over. So when I started working in golf in 91 for the Vic Golf Association initially, and being involved the once a year, and it was fun. You know, once a year you were running a professional level event. It was fantastic. But all of those memories, you knew what you were the custodian of. You know, you were looking after an event that had been around since 1957. You were looking after an event that you loved as a kid. So you better do a good job with it to make sure that it kept on going. And you know, when we sort of reached a crossroads point after that 2011 Vic Open, you know, we had to do something special because you didn't want to let it go.
Sadness. When that's been your background with the tournament, incredibly sad to see if it couldn't have been snatched.
And you know, all the other good things that you like to think that you've been part of from an amateur golf perspective, whether it be events or rules education or whatever, helping clubs out with different problems. Once a year you got to concentrate on a really big major event, which was a lot of fun.
Listening to you talk about being at the range there at Huntingdale with David Graham and all those halcyon years, it feels like, and I think this is one of the keys to success of the Vic Open, and you hinted at it with that no ropes idea, golf used to be, as a spectating experience, in fact, in all ways, even as a member of the press, a much more intimate sort of a thing, didn't it? At that level, there was much more accessibility. It was more tangible. I think it's changed a lot over the years, not necessarily for the better in some ways, David.
No, I hate rope tournaments, to be honest.
It's the danger for the Vic Open, isn't it, that it might become a victim of its own success, where it attracts the sort of player where it becomes perhaps a necessity?
Maybe, but it's actually safer to run it unroped, I reckon.
Tell me more.
The minute you start to corral people behind ropes, well, then they're sitting ducks for balls that are flying everywhere. And predominantly my experience with the Vic Open, whether it be as a spectator as a kid or, you know, working on the event over the years, is that having spectators walk behind players is a hell of a lot safer than having them propped up the fairway, held between ropes. 13th Beach is a bit unique too, because a few snakes down there in the rough. So I don't really want my spectators running around the rough at 13th Beach on hot days. But no, primarily I just like the idea of people being able to walk close to the players. You can chat to them if they feel like it. You can listen,
which they surprisingly often do.
Well, when we play our own round of golf, whether it be your local municipal or wherever, you know, you're generally talking to people between shots. You can't, you know, be zen-like for the whole, you know, time that you're out there. Yeah. So golf pros are no different than men and women, but yeah, like to me, it's more intimate, it's more personable, and I don't think it's any less safe. In fact, I think it's more safe having crowds walk with and behind the players and, you know, propped here, there and everywhere. As
a spectator, it's a far better golf experience, isn't it? Because there's no better place to watch golf from directly behind a player. Yep. Right, even in your own 4-ball on a Wednesday or a Saturday.
Yep.
It's the best way to see what the ball actually does in the air.
Yeah, and how they flight shots, especially, say, down at 13th Beach where you've got a bit of breeze around normally, so you've got to flight the ball a little bit. And it takes me back to, you know, I used to go and prop out on the range years ago watching the good players just hit ball after ball after ball.
You're a cross-generational golfer, a bit like me, and people of our sort of age, from that Blades and Persimmon and Ballada into what we see now.
Yep.
What are the pluses and the minuses of modern golf and old golf versus each other? What's better and what's maybe not better?
Golf's easier at club level now than I think it's ever been, and I think that's a good thing. When I started playing, and you'd be the same. We never had lob wedges. We never had rescue clubs. We had drivers that, you're either really on or you're really off.
Two speeds, fast and stop.
I don't think irons to me are a bit better, but that's the technical changes have come in the lofted clubs and the driving clubs essentially, and the golf ball is, it goes. I can hit the ball probably the same distance now as what I could when I was 30 in my 20s, 30 years ago. So
it's infinitely better in all ways. The ball, it's more durable, it spins better, it's more reliable the way it flies.
You get at least a round or two out of them and all of that sort of stuff. So I think they're all ticks. The biggest problem with equipment, or the ball particularly, is at the top end of the market. Probably 2 to 3% of elite professionals, elite amateurs who can generate that amount of club head speed to get the technology advantages out of the ball. If you had one wish for golf, I guess it would be to either create a tournament ball that takes 10% off it, or create a ball for all golfers which takes 10% off it for everybody, because 10% of my 180 straight isn't really going to matter that much.
No, that's true. That's a hard sell, as you know. It's not what we came together to talk about, but that's a hard sell. To tell people you take distance.
But a tournament ball would probably be the most logical solution to the problem, because you can't have. I think it's a shame in a lot of ways that we can't. There's two issues to it. You can't have golf clubs having to, St Andrews apparently the new 17th tee is now back in the driving range. Which
there are 5 tees on the old course that are not on the golf course for the Open.
That's no good.
It speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just silly. So we can't have that. Plus, I haven't refereed at too many Australian Opens in the last couple of years, but the last time I did, which would have been about 2017, thereabouts, I just really, walking around for 4 days with some reasonable players, watching them play, I'm just thinking I can't relate to what these players do anymore. Whereas, going back to those early Vic Opens, watching Trevino, etc., manoeuvre balls, flight balls, I could still relate to it, and I could probably appreciate the distance, say, Greg Norman could hit a Persimmon driver. So when Norman, the 17th of the composite course, the par 5, could hit Persimmon driver off the tee and occasionally Persimmon driver off the deck to get it home for 2. Wow, that was staggering. Whereas, when Ernie Els shot 60, he hit a driver and an 8-iron or something or other, primarily because he's good, but primarily because the technology had obviously changed. So
he'd be no less of a player with Persimmon and Blades is the point, though,
exactly.
isn't it?
The better players would actually probably be even better.
That's right.
Norman's driving of a Persimmon driver, I don't think was ever equalled in that period.
Just the sound, David.
No.
Even on old YouTube videos, you can hear it. The sound was something else.
I still remember the first time I ever saw Greg Norman play was at a Garden State PGA at Woodlands Golf Club in 1979. My dad used to do a bit of part-time commentary for the ABC back then, and I got sort of dragged along whenever he was working. And I remember seeing Greg Norman hit a driver and a 2-iron to Woodlands second, which was a sort of longish par 5. With the bleach blonde hair and the Wilson bag, and I'm thinking, this guy's a rock star.
He's the man, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm thinking, how good's this guy? And followed his career pretty closely ever since. And he led that 80s boom in golf where people have fallen over themselves to join golf clubs.
We still see the results of that today. Adam Scott is what he is and who he is because of Greg Norman in many ways. Jeff Ogilvy will tell you the same thing. Robert Allen, he was a hero to all of them because he was such a giant character in the game. Do we as club golfers, David, realise what it is that the pros can and do? I'm not convinced. People get involved in the discussion about the distance and they'll tell you, there's not a problem, it's this or that. And I wonder how many have actually been to the golf course and watched what modern professional golf looks like. As you say, it doesn't resemble anything.
No, and I'm as guilty of that as probably the next person these days. I'll still watch major men's and women's professional events.
Television doesn't do it, though, does it?
No, it's probably out of all the sports I think that you can watch, golf's a 360-degree game, and watching it in a two-dimensional image never does it justice.
And scale.
And
scale of a golf course can never be captured on a screen.
Yeah, and topography, all of that stuff, and green speed, and you just can't. You've sort of got to get out there and feel it and see it and hear it to get a full appreciation of it. And that's probably why the last Men's Australian Open where I refereed, I was just sort of, wow, the men's professional golf is now so different to what I grew up watching. It's about smashing a drive as far as you can, not really worrying about strategically, just get it down there, get it long. It's funny though, it's been a 25-year evolution. I remember watching Jeff Ogilvy win a Vic Amateur here at Commonwealth of all places in, I think it's 1998. And he'd been overseas playing US amateur events in the lead up to that year's Vic Amateur. And the first hole at Commonwealth's a relatively short par 4, about 300 odd metres, designed to be played with either the good player, like an iron or a 3-wood or whatever off the tee, and a pitch into the green. Anyway, and every round here, Jeff Ogilvy I think he had a big-headed drive, one of the first big-headed drivers, and just teed up and just drove the green.
Smacked it on there.
And I said, gee, isn't that a risky shot? He said, that's what I learnt playing some of the bigger events in amateur golf in America. Now, if you can reach a par 4 with your tee shot, you go for it. Because it's, even out of the greenside bunker or the greenside rough or whatever, it's much easier getting the ball up and down from there than it is even from, laying back.
Lots of people will tell you, lots of people within golf will tell you these days, David, that it's the natural evolution of every sport. Does that hold true for golf, do you think?
Well,
we don't make the net higher in basketball because the guys are getting better at three-point shooting. What are the differences between golf, I guess, and other sports?
Yeah, look, true. I've got no hankering to go back and play with hickory-shafted, woods and.
But is that what we mean by regulating the distance?
No, I just think it comes to a point where there needs to be a sensible limit. I suppose, like how far you could have a golf ball that goes 400 metres, maybe.
Of course you could. In fact, they probably have
got one. And would that make the game any more fun? No.
More interesting at the professional, which is ultimately just entertainment.
Yeah, true. Entertainment, but it also should be, the place where you see the very best play, and it's a fine line between, well, is it really the player who's doing the work, or is it really the technology that's doing the work? And, tennis is different. I played a bit of tennis as a kid, with wooden rackets and all that sort of stuff. Well, you don't use wooden
rackets. The lines
don't
change in tennis, do they? One of the integral parts of golf is the golf course and the players.
Yeah, and when the courses have to change to cope with the technology being used by these elite athletes, and there's no question the athletes are far better conditioned and prepared now than
you'd hope so with the information available to them.
Exactly. And I think golf now attracts. It's a sport of choice, whereas when I was at school, it was sort of still viewed as an unusual sport to do. If you're good at sport, why aren't you playing footy, cricket, netball, basketball? What are you doing having a go at golf? Whereas now, it's a legitimate sporting choice.
It's an interesting take. I hadn't thought about that way.
Well, and that was probably one of the things. In fact, one of the really fun events that I love going to still is this. In Victoria, we've done a state primary school championship.
Oh, wow.
For grade 4, 5 and 6 kids.
So what sort of age is that? Just
probably say 9, 10, 11.
Wow.
Yeah. Girls and boys. And the amount of talent that you see at the state final in that event every year is just unbelievable.
When did you start? That's a fantastic idea.
I've been going for about 20-odd years.
Wow. Great stuff.
And it has a whole lot of quality. It's a participation focus. So, there's 9-hole qualifiers all over the state, and it culminates in a final, albeit on a reduced size golf course. But the amount of ability that these kids have got. So the game is attracting talented boys and girls to it. We're not just attracting people to it because they've tried the other sports and they don't like them or whatever.
That's me.
Well,
I chose golf because I was no good, and B, none of the other sports attracted me.
No,
there's something about golf that was different.
Yeah, golf's hard.
It is cerebral.
Yeah, to me, the title of the show. When you think about golf, is it's not easy.
I was going to get to that question, so I'm glad I'd forgotten. So I'm glad you brought us back to it.
But that's the challenge of it. Like I played my primary sports growing up as a kid were footy, and I was much better at footy than anything else. Footy and cricket. And I dabble with golf because my parents had introduced me to it when I was about 3. And I'd always played it, but it was not my primary sport. But when we moved from Tassie to Melbourne, didn't know anybody, and I was a bit of a shy kid, so it's a bit like, I don't know if I'm, able just to walk into a footy club or a cricket club. Like I did that a bit later on, but I thought, well, I'll just play golf because I can play golf by myself. And then I actually then met a whole lot of people who've become lifelong friends by playing junior golf, and then sort of just kept playing. And then when the game grabs you, you think, this is actually more fun than I realised, playing golf. And this is hard. So I most people don't mind a challenge. You get out of it what you put into it, so it teaches you a really good work ethic. Even today, if no point whinging about your bad golf you might play on any day of the week. It's if you're not doing any practice or doing anything to make it better, well, you get what you get. So that's really the thing about golf. It's really a game that is impossible to master, and it just keeps drawing you back in. But as I've gotten older, the thing about golf are the things that the golf course doesn't offer. It's about playing with people and spending time with people, and every golfer's got a story, whether it be a work story, a life story, whatever. Sharing other interests when you're actually out playing a game of golf. So, and especially after the last sort of 12, 18 months that we've all gone through with this pandemic and being locked in our houses and being denied things.
Here in Melbourne, golf was taken away from
golf,
wasn't it?
Golf was taken away here for probably...
as part of 6 months?
Yeah. And from myself personally, I had a whole heap of knee issues last year, which compounded the COVID stuff. So, I basically didn't play golf for about 4 months, combination of COVID and having a crook knee, which I fortunately had fixed. But you don't know what you've lost until it's gone. And at the end of that lockdown period, the end of the injury period, and then being able to get back out there again, the appreciation that you have for it is not just the physical game itself, but it's actually...
that's probably the least of it in truth. Yeah,
it's like this morning you're sitting having a coffee talking about golf.
Happily. And by choice.
And that's the thing. That's the thing about golf. So I think going forward for me, especially as you get older and you physically don't play as well as you used to, but the game still offers you so much more because it really offers you social connectivity that most sports just can't. And it offers you a lifetime involvement. And the way golf handicapping works, and now clubs are getting far better with courses of different lengths.
That's all starting to really gel, isn't it? That world handicapping system.
That's right.
One field, one course.
One course. Whatever you play off the blue tees because you're really good, and I'll play off the green tees because I'm getting older and I'm shorter, and off we go, and we have a comparable game.
I'm not falling for that, by the way. We're go out and play golf, David. You can try as much as you like.
But that's where it's a special place, and the numbers that we're now seeing. Who are re-engaging with the game, people coming back to the sport, people playing more golf than they've probably ever played. There's possible concern that it's a bit of a false storm, but I don't think so. I think that society's had a bit of a recalibration as to what's really important. You've spent 12 or 18 months where we've had to be locked up inside our houses for good reason. Well, okay, now that we're letting you out again, what's important to you?
How do we make sure it's not a flash in the pan? Because there are some real concerns about that, and partly, and there's a lot of people saying that golf's one of the few industries, this is more an industry or a business notion, and golf is an industry ultimately, it employs lots of people, including you and I, in that way. Lots of other industries had to pivot, they were forced to pivot. Golf, in a funny way, has benefited because they haven't had to pivot. People have come back to it. So how do we hold on to them this time? We've had the golf boom before and we lost all.
Yeah, and I think I think if I think back to the 80s, and I wasn't working in golf back then, that I think we just thought that this was just going to keep happening.
Exactly right.
People were going to keep walking through the door.
Clubs were full, couldn't get a tee time in places. Pro shops couldn't keep up with equipment.
And all of that. And I think this time around clubs are a much better place from membership options that they can offer people. I still think we've got more work we can do in terms of making our golf clubs and golf facilities as welcoming as they can possibly be, especially to women and kids. An interesting stat I saw recently was that in the 1970s, the percentage split between men and women golfers was about 70% men, 30% women, and now it's down to 80% men, 20% women. And
that doesn't gel with the rest of society.
No, it doesn't, and we've got to get better. Like, golf's got to get better at that.
How do we proactively get better at that? It's going to take proactive change, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and Golf Australia's done a lot of really good work with the Vision 2025 initiative and shining a spotlight on women's involvement in golf in all levels, not just playing, but in administrating and positions and so on. I think as golfers, we're all custodians of the sport, and the challenge I'd put out there to male golfers is that you shouldn't just be introducing one other person to the sport. You should be trying to introduce one other female, woman or girl. It doesn't matter if it's your family member, friend, work colleague, whatever. Get active and support people getting involved in the sport. I think we need golfers to be our marketers. Like, as for all the work that Golf Australia does, the PGA does, all the various industry groups do, golf clubs do themselves. Look, clubs do some fantastic things. Like, here we've got women's clinics, junior clinics. Golf clubs all over Australia doing that stuff. But at the end of the day, golfers have to help recruit other golfers, and male golfers can just as easily recruit female golfers as they can recruit male golfers. And like I said, I've got 2 daughters, and I'll keep trying until I can try no longer to get both of them to engage with the game, and that's the challenge I'd have for every male golfer listening.
All you're doing is offering women the opportunity to say yes or no to golf.
Exactly,
which is really
exactly, and anyone can play golf if you can hold a club and swing it, you can play.
Sandy Jamison's doing some fabulous work in that way over at Oakley, and we see his tweets on a daily basis about the importance of public golf and the sorts of people who are playing golf there. His program is a really interesting idea. I wanted to ask you about that because outside of golf, it's always been my belief that the game has an image problem with non-golfers, and I think we see that in a lot of places with public golf. Now, at the moment, there's a bit of a hoo-ha about Moore Park up in Sydney. I've written a lot about it. It's a big issue. I know that it's seeped down to here in Melbourne. Melbourne people are watching that with interest as well. What does golf need to do? How can golf get on the front foot to explain to people who think golf has no value and just takes up too much space and resources? How do we talk to non-golfers?
I think we've just got to we've got to tell our story, and I think James Sutherland's come on as the CEO of Golf Australia, and he's working really proactively with Gavin Kirkman at the PGA, and I think industry-wise now we're really getting our act together and we're telling our story. For a long time, I think golf stayed quiet. The things were said about the game which were just not right. But we never did anything to refute that and to say it and just tell our side of the story too.
It's hard to be a we in golf as well in some ways, isn't it? Because it's a very fragmented game. You've got the PGA, you've got Golf Australia, you've got the State Association. I know we've got one golf now, but the clubs are all their own separate entities.
And by and large, our real estate, our sporting fields, if you like, are provided by clubs, and whichever public facilities can be had. And space is precious now, especially when you've got Melbourne's a city now of over 5 million people, and space is at an absolute premium. So I can understand all of that too. But there is a benefit going back the other way. Public golf makes golf affordable for a lot of people. Whether you're geographically where you're located, economically in terms of what resources you've got available to you, time. Just trying to get across a city now of 5 million people is really hard work. And time's precious. Time is probably the most precious commodity of all. And that's where having a local public facility, especially to take new people to the game in a non-threatening environment. And that's probably where clubs need to continually challenge themselves about, well, is our environment right for bringing new people to the game? Do we put too many barriers up to stop someone walking through the front gate to want to learn the game and feel comfortable being at the facility?
The answers are still all too often yes, I think we'd all agree, but I do feel like that's changing.
Getting better. Yeah, no, look, it's... I think back to when I started playing golf as a kid, if you wanted to come into the clubhouse for the presentation in the afternoon, you had to put a coat and tie on. The short sock.
Let's not
the short sock.
relive that debacle.
Stuff from dress regulations and even use of technology in clubhouses and things like that. So things are gradually changing, and everybody has to move with the times. It's nice to have a standard, but let's not get too over the top. Let's
pick what standards it is that we're trying to keep.
Yeah, just let's embrace people. Like the beauty of golf is that anyone can play it, and you can play it for as long as you can draw a breath. So
yeah, indeed. Is there a role for private golf in that public golf space? And what might that be? Because private golf is undoubtedly a beneficiary of public golf, and that's where we create golfers, generally speaking, in the public side. And many of them go on, should they become golfers, to join a private facility.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's all part of the what would you call it? The golf ecological chain. Like you're only ever as strong as your weakest link, and if you've not got people coming in at the grassroots, whether that be in a private setting or a public setting, well, the game's not going to prosper. And the public setting is essential because it's affordable, it's local, it's where people feel less threatened to give it a go. And that I'd extend that not just to public golf courses, but also public driving ranges. Like I was commenting to someone the other day, I think in Melbourne, for example, we probably had 20 or 30 driving ranges in this city, say 15, 20 years ago, and I think we're down to about half that number now. A lot of them have been swallowed up by road construction or big retail developments and so on. And driving ranges are great entry points into the game for lots of people.
Particularly some of the new technology you see with Topgolf and some of those other things, which is more than just whacking a ball into the ether.
Yeah, exactly. So they're facilities that we have to nurture as well because they're very much valid entry points. It's a big ask for somebody just to even rock up to a public golf course if they've never played before to try the game.
The game is intimidating enough, leaving aside whatever trappings might be going on in the clubhouse.
That's right. That's right. I've always thought of golf, it's a bit like when you're taught to tie your shoes as a kid. Like when someone shows you golf for the first time, it just seems so foreign and so difficult, and you think, how the hell can I ever do this? But with a bit of patience and practice and encouragement, you can get to a rudimentary level, and then how far you go with it after that.
It's kind of up to you in a lot of ways, isn't it?
It's a case of, well, how much do you want to put into it, and how if you be patient and you persevere, you'll find a natural level, and then if you want to go beyond that natural level, well, then that's up to you. But just getting over that beginner hump is the challenge. I remember my mum telling me, because I said to her once, I said, what do you think is the barrier to more women not getting involved in golf? She says it's just a really hard game to learn. And, that's the other thing that, especially as a male golfer, and I've used this in trying to get my two girls to play, is you've just got to keep encouraging, keep persevering, because, for a new golfer, it is a challenge. And you've just got to keep them at it for as long as you can.
I guess as golfers, we probably need to accept this a little bit too. I think we can be a bit evangelical, those of us who've got the disease of golf, in that we assume that it can grab everybody. That's not necessarily the case, though, either.
It's like, the world would probably be a boring place if we all liked exactly the same things and did the same things. But, when you're passionate about something, you just want others to see and share what you're passionate about. And I like going. The thing about golf is that it's more than just a game. It's a social connection that you really can't put a price on.
And that pandemic, as you talked about, that's really, I think, brought that into sharp focus for an awful lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's much nicer talking to you now across a table and it's on a Zoom screen, and being out and being back out on the golf courses again, and fresh air, wind in your face, birds chirping in trees, etc. So there's all those extra things that we get in golf.
You forget that they're part of it and that's what you miss. You only ever think of the 32 points you had, whereas now I think you do think of all of those. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I had 32 points, but who cares about that? It's not important.
Yeah, exactly. It's a holistic experience, not just a game.
You've been around the game for a long time, David. You've seen a lot of changes already, as we've seen. What does the future for golf look like, do you think?
Look, I don't think the game will ever disappear. I've got no fear that it's going to die a slow death, but I think it needs to innovate and it needs to promote itself better than it's ever done before. Like, there's just so much competition now for people's time, not just from other sports, but just from life.
The device in your pocket.
Exactly.
You can spend all day, every day on that.
Yeah, you can.
Reading about golf and never playing it if you wanted to.
Yeah, and I guess most sports would say the same thing, that they want, especially at the younger generations, to get off the technology and to put a club or a racket or a bat or a ball or whatever in their hands to do. Look, market forces will probably dictate, the facilities, but I think the challenge for the game is to market and promote itself and to have a steady stream of people taking it up. I'm closer to the end than the beginning from a golf point of view and from a work-life point of view. But, I see my role as a golfer to keep being a promoter of it and keep encouraging people to try it. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to take it up and want to play it, but I've got a fundamental belief in it, and that's the belief that I just would be encouraging all golfers and golf entities to do. And from a work perspective, I see probably the best level of collaboration between the game's amateur body and professional body taking place now. So
for the first time in a long time, it feels legitimate, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And both bodies will be moving into the Australian Golf Centre at Sandringham in July this year, and living and working and operating out of the same facility, being able to present in a unified way what the game's development program should look like at the Sandringham facility. Which will be fantastic. So whether you're just a casual golfer coming off the street to hit a bucket of balls, or a good player from a state coming down to do some work on the high performance centre, you're going to have state of the art facilities, which I never thought I'd actually see in my time in golf. Golf enjoying a national centre the same way that most other sports have enjoyed for quite some time. So I think that's a great achievement for Golf Australia, the PGA, Golf Victoria, the Victorian government, who've helped support the development of that. That's really doing golf a great service.
It probably seems like a small thing, but the ability for James Sutherland to walk out of his office and go down and talk to Gavin Kirkman, and Gavin Kirkman to walk out of his office and go and talk to James Sutherland, you can't put a price on the potential value of that. To have a coffee each morning or once a week.
Well, you've got both, the staff coming together in terms of whichever aspect of the game you're working on, and there are subtle differences between what each body does, and there always has been, and there always will be.
Always will be, as it should be.
Yeah, and from my point of view, I've grown up the son of a golf club professional. So my father's 87 now, so he's had he probably turned trainee when he was 17. So, and he's
70 years.
I've lived it and seen it. I've seen what it's been like to work in a club golf environment. It's funny, like when Dad was the club pro at Huntingdale, I was doing my uni courses back then. So at the same time I was going to uni, I was working part-time in my father's shop. So I probably got a parallel education of working in a golf club as well as working or doing the university studies the rest of the time. And a lot of the stuff that you learn, the people that you meet and the conversations you have with golfers over the counter in a pro shop or down on the range picking up balls on a Saturday afternoon, they're lessons that you take with you for the...
At least as valuable as anything you learn at university in many ways, because they're real. Just listening to golfers and hearing what concerns them and what they're thinking about the game and what could be, how the club could do this better or how my game could be better if I could do. So it was a really interesting experience. So that's going to happen organically by working out of the same facility. So I've got a lot of confidence about where the game's going from an administration perspective, and there's a lot of good people involved, so you've got to have faith in that. We can't afford not to anyway. We're now in a position where golf can't afford not to work together.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And the challenge, like I said, the challenges that golf faces from every other sport and other stuff is never been higher. But like I said, I don't have any fear for the game. If we could come back in a time capsule in 100 years, 200 years, I'd be horrified if golf didn't exist.
No. As a my co-host on another podcast likes to, his dad used to say, if golf didn't exist, someone would invent it. It's important.
Well, that's exactly right.
It's true.
And you know, as an industry, we've got to be dynamic and agile and move with the times and make it affordable and protect the public spaces and protect the best of the best private spaces, because people golfers always want to find somewhere to call home.
The fundamental appeal of the game, I don't think, has ever changed. It's exactly the same now for us as it was for young and old Tom Morris.
Yep.
It's exactly the same. It hasn't changed.
Yep.
A lot of change around it, but it itself hasn't changed.
And they're beautiful places, golf courses. So.
They are. They're wonderful green spaces.
Yeah.
You know, we often hear this, we want to convert this to green space. Well, it's already green space.
It's already green space. You're just whacking a ball around.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You only hit it sort of 70 to 100 times around, depending on how good you are. So there's plenty of time to admire what it is
that's
you're
exactly
walking
right. And maintain what is it.
Yeah.
Golf courses are actually great places for flora and fauna, better than a lot of city council-owned parks and whatnot. That's a whole other discussion, which we don't need to get into. David, it has been absolutely fabulous to catch up with you today. I've wanted to have this discussion. Did we talk on my podcast all those years ago after the first Vic Open? I know we had Simon Brookhouse on. I think you might have joined in.
Yeah, no, you did talk
9 years?
Yeah, the 9 years. So I think you did talk to Simon, and I might have been listening in on the background there. But yeah, the Vic Open's the sort of shiny thing that people see. But to me, the journey in golf's been about connecting with golfers of all levels, and I've been really fortunate to travel, most parts of Victoria to golf clubs big and small, and running events, doing rules nights for people, and all of that sort of stuff. So that's the memories I'll take away from golf will be about the people, about the golfers. They're a really wonderful group of people.
I can almost guarantee everybody listening will be a golfer, and if you're not, you might want to seek some help. There might be something wrong there, but I think all of us understand that. Golf is much more than just a small part of most people's lives. It really does change things for you. My whole life has been immersed in golf.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, a nice way to probably finish up is to just encourage golfers. It can be a really selfish game. We can get too sucked into, how we play is how it is, but certainly, my attitude to golf has evolved, and never more so than the last sort of 12, 18 months, as we were talking. And I've probably got a renewed sense of duty that I need to, keep promoting this sport for as long as I can and get more people to play it.
Yep. Let's all introduce somebody else to the thing about golf.
Absolutely.
Fabulous to chat, David. Thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's it for episode 40, and a special thanks to David, who took time out on a Sunday to be a part of that interview. That was exceedingly generous of him. Now, I hope you've taken the time to subscribe to the show, because you will not want to miss episode 41 when John Huggan sits down with two-time US Open winner Curtis Strange. That's next time on The Thing About Golf.